Hey guys, we're going to start out by discussing what macro-based diet is, macronutrient-based dieting. So I want to start out by telling you a story way back when I was in my early 20s when I started working with a personal trainer who was getting me ready for a contest as a young bodybuilder. So back in the day, I think like everybody starts, he just gave me a meal plan, gave me, here's what you have to eat every day. There were no macronutrient values. I didn't know even the difference between protein, carbs, and fat per se, but he just said, eat this. And I followed along, and eventually I got to a point where there were just foods I didn't necessarily like. He had small exchange lists, so I could have protein, turkey, that kind of thing, lean fish, lean beef for protein sources. Carbs were very narrow. And I just started asking him, why can't I have this instead? And he said, no, you can't because it's not on the list. And essentially he had just copied a plan from a magazine, and that's all he knew. He was a one-trick pony, which is still quite common. So I broke it down into just math. I looked at the macronutrient values. If he wants me to have green beans, how much protein, carbs, and fat are in that food source? And I started making my own exchanges. And he didn't like that because I was going rogue on his plan. But when I started doing consulting later, I was still actually in college working toward my physical therapy career. Flash forward to when I had finished my master's and doctorate in nutrition, and I owned a facility, and I was doing nutrition consulting, and I thought, well, that kind of flexibility is really necessary. People are eventually going to need, very quickly, some kind of flexible way of eating. And so this goes back 25 years ago, and a little bit later I was writing for magazines, and I started writing about this, and little did I know that would become the entire genesis of flexible dieting, what's called flexible dieting right now. Pretty simple, right? I mean, just eat the foods you like, just do the math. But there are some pros and cons to that. We have structured our entire company on macro-based dieting, flexible dieting, because it simply is necessary for long-term sustainable success. And we're going to break down where we do need structure. I mean, there still is a massive benefit to having foods that you can rely on, foods you like. We are very habit-based as human beings, but we still do need to know when we can toggle back and forth between high structure and high flexibility. So, many of you coming into this program, this is old news to you, and you've done macro-based dieting in the past, you've tracked macronutrients, so you can just zip right along. Your coach will give you that plan, and you can just take off with it. Other people, this is going to be new. And for those of you who you've never looked at nutrition fact panels, you've never gotten out a calculator, or even maybe used a food app to track your food, this is going to be a pretty big obstacle in getting started. And I want you to view it as something that's going to be a long-term, massive help to you. So when I use the word obstacle, I don't mean that we have to go around it or over it. Let's learn it like it's a coursework piece in college or something like that. And once you have this information down, it's only going to take you a week or so. It's going to be so easy. So we're going to spend this first week just trying to pick apart what that means and getting started, getting set up. And the amount of foundational work you do now is going to pay such great dividends for your long-term success. So that's what I want to start with today, is just letting you know that macro-based dieting is essential. And even though it may take you weeks to get this fine-tuned into what you might think is perfect and easy and simple, we're going to go through those steps on how to get there. So stay tuned, and we're going to keep sending these videos to you every single day, and we're going to make this easy.